Okay, great. Okay, welcome to our program today. We're studying the Course in Miracles, the text, and we are on chapter 2, the separation and the atonement, and on section 7, cause and effect. Okay, and I'll take the first paragraph. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with my friends and my daughter, Sonia. Say hi, Sonia.
Hi.
Teresa.
Hello.
And Connie.
Hi.
Hey. Okay, so first paragraph. You may still complain about fear, but you nevertheless persist in making yourself fearful. I have already indicated that you cannot ask me to release you from fear. I know it does not exist, but you do not. If I intervened between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. It is much more helpful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. You may feel that at this point it would take a miracle to enable you to do this, which is perfectly true. You are not used to miracle-minded thinking, but you can be trained to think that way. All miracle workers need that kind of training. Okay, so in the previous sections, we have been talking a lot about fear, and basically healing is a release of fear. And so for healing, and of course, healing is the result of the miracle. And as miracle workers, we really need to work with releasing fear. And so we do make ourselves fearful. And what it's saying here is that when we ask for help from the Holy Spirit, it's saying, you cannot ask me to release you from fear because I know it doesn't exist, but you do not. So when we go into fear, we go into the wrong mind, okay? And we forget that we have a right mind. And so we sort of close ourselves off and feel really, what's the word, separated. We don't even remember that we are creations of God and that we even have a higher mind. When we're in fear, we're so contracted, we're so identified with being a small body that is being threatened by whatever we're afraid of, that it's like as if we were asleep and having a nightmare. And so we are very convinced that fear is real, or we would not be reacting to it, okay? And so that's what it's saying here about the basic law of cause and effect. If I intervene between your thoughts and their results, so if Holy Spirit were to intervene and take away our fear, then it would not allow the effects of the thoughts, which are causal, to complete. And that's the basic law here. That's the most fundamental law, which is that every cause has an effect. And that would not be helpful because it would not be training us and teaching us that our mind is powerful, because it is powerful. And if it doesn't, and if we're not, if it doesn't have effects, if the Holy Spirit could just release those effects, then we would believe that it had no effects, and therefore it would not be causal, which is what we already believe, and that's why we're afraid. So it would not be helpful. Okay. Therefore, okay, to depreciate the power of our thinking, even though it's an ego thinking that is based on fear, is really not the solution that we're looking for when we're scared. Okay. And sometimes, we try to talk ourselves out of it. Like we'll say, oh my God, I'm really scared, and then we'll try to say, oh, but it's not real. It's not, so we can kind of, a part of our mind can uh, intellectually, recognize or know that none of it is real, but we're still feeling it, and we're still sensing it. And so to deny that is not the way to release that, because we're not congruent. The thinking is not congruent with what's happening at the feeling and the sensing. Um, so, okay. And so we want to be able to give our thoughts, even the scary ones, the power, and recognize that, oh my gosh, they do have power and they do have effects, because that's the purpose of this course. That's what we're learning. We're learning that our thoughts are powerful and they have effects, even if they're not God thoughts, even if they're thoughts that we made up that are not real. They are insane. Okay, we're still going to experience the results of those thoughts, because it's going to be a miscreation, a misperception. So it's not a true creation, but it's still going to have effects in a world of time and space. And so that's what the whole mind training is for this course, is that we need to change how we've trained our mind, because we've taught ourselves to think fearfully and make up fearful things that are not true. And most of the time it's just imagining things. We're like, well, but what if, like, oh my goodness, my friend is late to my meeting. And then my mind goes like, oh my goodness, what if she got in a traffic accident? Oh my goodness, what if, what if, yeah, something bad happened to her? Okay, well, all of that is just giving our imagination all this energy to go into fear. Okay, and we don't need to do that. That's why it says number 7, it's more helpful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. Okay, so we're not paying attention to just giving full freedom to this imagination, that goes back to all the scary movies we ever watched, and starts imagining all these things that never happened. And so let's see. So we are being helped by retraining our mind, so that we can remember that it is our thinking that is the cause of what we experience, okay, what we see, and therefore we go back to the thinking to release that and undo that, which reestablishes where the source and the cause is. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any questions with that? No. Okay. Okay. You want to go, Sonia?
Sure. 2. I cannot let you leave your mind unguarded, or you will not be able to help me. Miracle working entails a full realization of the power of thought in order to avoid miscreation. Otherwise, a miracle will be necessary to set the mind itself straight, a circular process that would not foster the time collapse for which the miracle was intended. The miracle worker must have genuine respect for true cause and effect as a necessary condition for the miracle to occur.
Mhm. Okay, so anything there? Okay, so sentence number 4, it says that the miracle worker must have genuine respect for true cause and effect. Okay, and true cause is the level of mind. So it's something that's very, very, very important, because otherwise we reverse cause and effect, and now we are believing in magic. And previously we read that all physical conditions are the result of believing that matter is creative, meaning that matter is causal. So for healing, and when we are experiencing symptoms, all physical symptoms of illness, okay, if we remember that there must be a reversal there, we can kind of look for, okay, where am I believing in magic here? Where am I believing that the cause of this symptom is something that I did, or it's something that someone did to me, or it's something that I ate, or it's something that I didn't do, like I should have done and neglected to do, like, I didn't do my exercise regularly, so now I have, stiff joints or whatever kind of thing, so we to be able to look at where we have forgotten that the mind is causal will undo the symptoms. And I have an example of that. Let's see, a few years back, I had some cramping, really, 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 really bad cramping. And it was almost like food poisoning. It felt like it was almost food poisoning. And I was in bed for a couple of days. And I was ready to go to tell my husband, just take me to the hospital, because, nothing's working here. So, and then I remembered what happened right before that night before I woke up with the cramping. And it had to do with my sisters. It was a very simple thing. My sister was visiting, and she called me and wanted me. She said basically, oh, we made these really good milkshakes, kind of fruit shakes or something. Why don't you come over and have some with us? Okay. And what I remember was that I really didn't want to go, but I went anyway. And it was that once I remembered that I put myself in a compromised position, because I chose to do something I did not want to do. And remember that in one of the sections we read, it talks about how we, I can't remember the wording now, but it had to do with inner conflict. Okay. And once I realized that, the symptoms just, they were gone. I didn't have to go to the hospital at all. Yeah. So let's see. Okay. So paragraph 3.
Okay. Both miracles and fear come from thoughts. If you were not free to choose one, you would also not be free to choose the other. By choosing the miracle, you have rejected fear, if only temporarily. You have been fearful of everyone and everything. You are afraid of God, of me, and of yourself. You have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made. You would not have done this if you were not afraid of your own thoughts. The fearful must miscreate because they misperceive creation. When you miscreate, you are in pain. The cause and effect principle now becomes a real expediter, though only temporarily. Actually, cause, quote unquote, cause is a term properly belonging to God, and his, quote unquote, effect is his son. This entails a set of cause and effect relationships totally different from those you introduce into miscreation. The fundamental conflict in this world, then, is between creation and miscreation. All fear is implicit in the second, and all love in the first. The conflict is therefore one between love and fear.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, any thoughts on that, Connie?
Oh, just it's interesting that those relationships, the cause, how it's definitely only referring to God, and his effect
Mhm,
is the son. And so all our other relationships are really miscreation.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
totally different. Hmm.
Yes, and in the last line, the conflict is therefore one between love and fear. So the course is very practical in that it teaches us the value of forgiveness as the reflection of love, okay, which is a decision for the miracle rather than for holding a grievance, which puts us into fear. Okay. And let's see, what was that other line where it said about pain? It reminded me,
Mm,
That's
yeah.
number 9.
number 9. Let's
When you
see.
miscreate, you're in pain. Is that it?
Yes. So that's what happened. I was in so much pain with the cramping pain, because it wasn't just so much that I mean, it was the thoughts behind my not wanting to go. Okay. Because it was a loving gesture on their part to invite me over. And I misinterpreted that as my sister trying to control me and get
Well,
me
you
to
might have
go.
felt guilt. Yeah, so there was some guilt under there too if you didn't go. And guilt is the
Yes,
big source of pain.
yes, yes, Connie. Yep, that's right.
I know that
And
one well.
yes, and so that's when we feel quote unquote forced to do things that quote
Mhm.
unquote don't want to do. Because when you were talking about relationships, Connie, right? A lot of
Mhm.
our relationships are based on obligation, and
Mhm.
in particular with family members, right?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, they're being nice to me, so I am obligated to pay them back and be nice to them. So it's not really a relationship based on love. It's a relationship based on, you know, who knows, survival, based on benefiting, based on exchange, based on, you know, making, based on specialness. So there's a lot of reasons, you know, when we're engaging in relationships, of why we do things that are definitely not coming from love. And that's why it's a miscreation. And the results are painful, you know, emotionally or physically, or even just mentally. Maybe it's worry or something like that. Um, and then number 7 says, well, see, number 6 says, you have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made. Okay. And you would not have done this if you were not afraid of your own thoughts. Okay. So what we do is we project because we're afraid of our own thoughts. So if I feel guilty, okay, rather than to look at the thoughts, because it took me 2 or 3 days to really look at those thoughts underneath that pain. Okay. So we don't want to look at the guilt we hide it so well. And so because we're afraid of the thoughts, of the power of those thoughts. So what we rather do is project the guilt onto somebody else. You know, and my explanation was, oh, she's just using some, you know, food to control me, to get me to go over there, and I don't have time to go over there, that kind of a thing. So I am miscreating her as doing something unloving, which is not true. I am the one that's being unloving, and I am not looking at that. I'm projecting it onto her. Yeah.
I didn't get that piece. Yeah.
The projection piece.
Yeah, you're thinking what she's doing is really unloving.
Yes, because I'm believing my feeling. I'm feeling like she's being controlling, and that she's using, you know, a food that's good to get me. It's a reward to get me to do what she wants, to control me. I mean, that's the explanation of my ego, of course. You know, it's nonsense, but I believe it. So that's the main problem. The problem here, it says, number 6, that you have misperceived or miscreated us and believe in what you have made. That's really the problem. Okay. So our egos it's imaginary, it's imagination, and it makes up all these stories, you know, of what's happening to justify how we feel, you know, which is not true. And then we believe those thoughts. We believe that story.
Well, you see, I think I've been missing that, because I generally will go to, you know, feeling guilty because I don't want to do something, and then I just turn it on myself and feel the pain. But I guess there is that other piece in there to look at that you're talking about, and I hadn't, if that makes sense at all.
What's the other piece, Connie, that you hadn't looked at?
Well, and how you thought that she was doing something unloving. See, I just immediately go to myself and attack myself.
You mean when someone else?
I'm bad, or I've done the wrong thing, instead of projecting.
Okay, so you're misperceiving yourself. We do that. See, number 5, you are afraid of God and of me and of yourself. So we are afraid that we are bad people. Okay, that's why we don't trust ourselves, and that's why we're afraid of our own thoughts, because we think we can attack ourselves. And we sort of, you know, prove it to ourselves by turning against ourselves and then being really hard on ourselves and, oh, you're so stupid. Oh, why did you do that? You see what I'm saying? We really, really, really abuse ourselves sort of,
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
our own thinking and in our own emotionally. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we turn against ourselves. So whether it's someone else or whether it's ourselves, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes we turn against ourselves because we think, well, I'm not hurting anybody. So it's okay to just let myself have it because it's myself. I can do whatever I want with myself. So what if I abuse myself? Right?
Mm.
We seem to get away from the guilt,
Mm.
or at least we hide it from ourselves by dissociating,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember hearing people say, I'm a good person. I would never hurt anyone. But they turn everything against themselves. They definitely hurt
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah. And they're not aware of it. They're not aware of the discrepancy.
Well,
Yeah.
that could be a lot, yeah, behind the drug addiction or alcoholism.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Self-abuse big time
Yeah.
without a clue.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Teresa.
It has already been said that you believe you cannot control fear because you yourself made it, and your belief in it seems to render it out of your control. Yet any attempt to resolve the error through attempting the mastery of fear is useless. In fact, it asserts the power of fear by the very assumption that it need be mastered. The true resolution rests entirely on mastery through love. In the interim, however, the sense of conflict is inevitable, since you have placed yourself in a position where you believe in the power of what does not exist.
Mhm, mhm. Anything there, Teresa?
Not really.
Yes. So that's the thing about believing you know, in false thoughts. Once we believe in them, um, we're kind of identified with them. Um, and so by identifying with them, it almost feels like they have control over us. So, yeah. So when we're afraid, it feels as if the fear just showed up, right? We didn't do it. It just took over us, possessed us. Okay. Um, and because we believe it, we gave it that power to seem real to us. And therefore we are sucked into that illusion and now feel powerless because we have forgotten that we made it, that our mind is behind it. Um, so it's almost like turning perception upside down because we're reversing cause and effect. And then what we do is we attempt to resolve the error through attempting to mastery of fear. Okay, so I say, oh my gosh, I am terrified of heights. I am so scared. It just comes over me. Okay, so I can't use stairs. I can't go hiking. Okay, well, I'm just going to go climb Mount Everest and overcome my fear. Okay, I'm just gonna force myself to face it, Okay. So um okay, so that would be useless, okay? Because by doing that, opposing, I am trying to do battle with my own fear, which only reinforces my belief that it's true and that it's real. Okay, so anytime I try to attempt to resolve error, okay, by trying to overcome it, opposing it, force myself to do battle with it, I'm going to make it more real in my own mind. Because why would I be engaging with it? If I realized it wasn't true, it's not there, I wouldn't have to try to overcome it. So that's why healing and the the right mind, the Holy Spirit, is not a doing, it's an undoing, because it's undoing the belief in what is fearful and not real. So it doesn't involve correction with doing. It involves correction in the mind, who is believing that something that is imaginary is true. And that's the error. The error is that we believe in imaginary ideas that have no basis in fact. Because most of the time we're making up stories about, about when we try to understand an event or what happened, what, person's motivation, we're just guessing. We're just making things up. We don't know. And even if we talk to the people and we ask them, they don't know either. So much of it is unconscious. So then we're just making up stories, and then we're believing in them. And then we do that collectively. And then we have a whole world that's made up and it's not there. But we all think it's there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's a very fearful world, So, so the true resolution rests entirely on mastery through love, and the practice is forgiveness. And remember that that forgiveness for A Course in Miracles is recognizing that what my brother did never happened. It was just in my imagination. I made it up. I misinterpreted what he did. I misperceived it. I miscreated it. And in the meantime, until we get back and undo that, the sense of conflict is going to be inevitable. That's not line number 5. Since you have placed yourself in a position where you believe in the power of what does not exist. Yeah, fear. So, and we're so used to it that we do have to chip away at it as best as we can.
Yep.
Okay, so anything there before we go on? Okay, number 5. Nothing and everything cannot coexist. To believe in one is to deny the other. Fear is really nothing and love is everything. Whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. What you believe is true for you. In this sense, the separation has occurred, and to deny it is merely to use denial inappropriately. However, to concentrate on error is only a further error. The initial corrective procedure is to recognize temporarily that there is a problem, but only as an indication that immediate correction is needed. This establishes a state of mind in which the atonement can be accepted without delay. It should be emphasized, however, that ultimately no compromise is possible between everything and nothing. Time is essentially a device by which all compromise in this respect can be given up. It only seems to be abolished by degrees because time itself involves intervals that do not exist. Miscreation made this necessary as a corrective device. The statement, quote, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life," unquote, needs only one slight correction to be meaningful in this context. Quote, "He gave it to his only begotten Son." Okay, let's just do that line by line there. Okay, nothing and everything cannot coexist. Okay, what it's saying is that there's reality and there's illusion. Okay, illusion is nothing and everything is reality. And remember up here in paragraph 3, in line 15, the conflict is therefore one between love and fear. Okay, so in time, that seems to be the conflict because we're deciding between forgiveness or the grievance. Okay, but in truth, love has no opposites. So in duality, in time, yeah, there seems to be conflict between love and fear. Okay, but in truth, illusion and reality, love and fear, cannot conflict because they're different orders of reality. Okay, in time and space, we call the world of separation and of fear, we call that reality. But in God's reality, it's illusion. It's not reality. And so there's no duality in God's kingdom. There's no opposition because it's eternal. It's all powerful. There's no separation. It's everything. So that's why it says here, nothing and everything cannot coexist. Either we're in our right mind and recognize this to be true, or we're not in our right mind and we're confusing the world of illusion with reality. So to believe in one is to deny the other. So that's what happens is we keep going back. We seem to be going back and forth, okay, because some things trigger us into fear and then we believe the fear is real. And now we are, upside down in the wrong mind. So fear is really nothing and love is everything. Okay, that's the correction. Because whenever light enters darkness, the darkness is abolished. So we have to recognize that truth and light is true power. Darkness is not anything in and of itself. It is an absence of light. And it's only an absence of light because there seems to be a block there to light. And then you see the shadow. just like we have nighttime on Earth, because the other side, because the planet itself is blocking the sunlight. So what we believe, if we're going to believe in the ego thought system, which is the thought system of separation, of fear, then we're going to be believing in something that is not true, but it's going to be true for us. And so in this sense, the separation has occurred because what did we just do? We just believed in something that is not real, and we made up an illusory, personal, individual point of view that nobody else can share. And that's basically what makes up insanity. If we do that often enough and long enough and consistently enough, nobody is going to understand what the heck we're talking about, because we are making up this whole world. That's just for us, because nobody else has access to it. And we're going to feel very separated, of course. But we don't want to concentrate on the error, okay? Because then that's the problem. The problem of separation is we make things up about ourselves, and then we believe that we are this personal, individual, private self with a private world, with private thoughts. And that's the same for every other person in the world. And so the corrective procedure is to recognize temporarily that there is a problem. Separation is a problem. It's the only problem, according to Course in Miracles. But we don't concentrate on the problem to then wallow in misery, which we like to do, and that's fine, but it is suffering. Like it says, I think above, suffering is a necessary expedient, at least temporarily. You can only stand it for so long. And so we recognize the problem, the error, only because we want to acknowledge that correction is needed. And once we acknowledge that correction is needed, then we open the mind to receive the Holy Spirit, which is the true, which is the answer that opens the mind to the right mind, which is our communication link to truth, the voice for God. And this establishes a state of mind in which the atonement can be accepted without delay. And so the mind recognizes, no, it's not true. All my misperception, that's a misperception. It's not true. And I can forgive. I can choose love and not feel separate. And so here it just talks about time. And so we can look at time as really an opportunity which will allow us to give up trying to compromise between nothing and everything, because they cannot be reconciled. Reality and illusion cannot be reconciled. And it takes a lot of effort to try to do that. We have to invest a lot of energy in trying to do that. So we can use time to let go of that. And choose to value what is truly real rather than what we have taught ourselves to value, which is temporary and illusory in the world. And the miscreation made this necessary as a corrective device. So time itself is a miscreation. So we're kind of having to work with time because it's part of the miscreation. Otherwise, and basically the miracle takes us out of time. So it does, uh, save us, what the Course says, thousands of years. Okay, and then the last statement, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, okay, so that we could have everlasting life. And he gave his only begotten son to his only begotten son. Okay, so that's a little strange, right? What does he mean by how can he give his only begotten son to his only begotten son? Well, it's the awareness that there is only one begotten son. So it's the awareness of oneness in all of creation. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, the awareness of being only one son, one creation, no separation, so that he can experience and have everlasting life and be done with the idea of separation.
Well, the idea of death as well.
Yes, exactly. And because, I mean, think about it, of all the fearful things that we have made, I would say death is at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do is to avoid that or even thinking about it.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to be free from that fear of death would really be very close to this, having
Yeah.
everlasting life.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No one dies.
Yes, the true self is eternal. And it's only when we confuse it with what is not eternal, which would be the body, which is also a miscreation,
Mm.
or the ego, which is also a miscreation. It's a belief in separation. Yeah. Okay. So let's see, Sonia.
It should especially be noted that God has only one son. If all his creations are his sons, everyone must be an integral part of the whole sonship. The sonship in its oneness transcends the sum of its parts. However, this is obscured as long as any of its parts is missing. That is why the conflict cannot ultimately be resolved until all the parts of the sonship have returned. Only then can the meaning of wholeness in the true sense be understood. Any part of the sonship can believe in error or incompleteness if he so chooses. However, if he does so, he is believing in the existence of nothingness. The correction of this error is the atonement.
Mhm. Okay, so the idea of one son, and let's see, line 3 says the sonship in its oneness transcends the sum of its parts. What is that saying? Mm. So it's talking about, first of all, it's talking about mind, our true mind. Okay. We tend to believe that thinking, the process of thinking is our true mind. It's not our true mind. That's why the Course says that when we think, we're not really thinking. So And we confuse that with brain activity. So we think, oh yes, I'm thinking there's, little lights going off in my brain. The synapses are, whatever that
Firing,
is, they're
yeah.
processing, sending signals, right? Electrical signals, kind of a thing. Okay. So we're not talking about the body at all, the brain, when we're talking about the sonship in its oneness transcends the sums of its parts. Okay. We're talking about one creation, one mind that God created. And you can think of it in terms of, I don't know if you're familiar with muscle testing or with EFT with surrogate tapping, but it's the idea that there is no private mind. Okay, so the because we experience things as a collective. Okay, when we think of a collective, we think of individual parts coming together, but this is not individual parts, because the oneness transcends the sum of its parts. So it's not just like a volleyball team that has members that play on the team and they each do their part and they're one team with different parts. That's how we think of the body. We think, well, the body is one body, but there's different organs and they're each playing their own part and they're all working together. And then we're able to move and we're able to digest and take food and the whole thing. But the sonship in its oneness is talking, referring to not having a separate individual identity as a self, but having your identity be that one mind, so that you don't see separation, and we avoid projection because if you said something really awful to me, okay, then I'm going to say, oh my goodness, okay, I am projecting this and it's my mind, it's one mind, and I am giving myself this experience. Okay, that self that's saying all those terrible things is not separate from me. It's my mind that's making this up. It's a projection of my own thinking. And if I had not been thinking that about myself, I would not have, and then not looked at it and then felt bad about it, it would not be showing up as someone else. Okay, because I've projected that part precisely because I didn't want to look at the error. And by projecting it outside, I protect the error unless I recognize that it's my mind that's doing it and that there are no separate minds. There are no separate selves. Yeah, Sonia?
So could you say then that each part, each brother contains the whole? Essentially, it's what it's saying. It's not like the volleyball team, like you were saying, that have the separate little individual. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, so the self contains the whole. And that's why we hear someone saying, well, everywhere I go, there I am.
Mhm.
Okay, because it's a little bit like you think of a dream that you have at night, and all the little pieces in the dream, they're all just symbols for your own thinking. Okay, so they're not separate things in there. They're all just part of the same thinking process there. So, but it's showing up in what we call not sleeping. Okay, so let's see.
Yes, our dreams can be so revealing to us if we take the time to just kind of look at it. And boy, at first it can seem like, well, that was a bizarre thing. And then if you like really look at it, they can really teach you a lot about you.
Exactly. And you
Mhm.
can just take what you just said, Connie, and apply it to your waking experience
Mhm.
exactly the same way.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a double layer of dreaming. We
Oh,
don't really wake up. We just think we wake up
Continue,
from a
yeah.
dream and then we're just dreaming again. It's like that movie Inception. I don't know.
Inception?
I say, was it Inception, Sonia?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Inception.
Did you like that? Would you recommend it?
I think I have to see it again. It's so complicated because they go into one dream, but then they go into another level of dream. But it's
Mm.
the same idea,
Yeah.
that you think you wake up from a dream, but you're still in a dream.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Boy.
So that approach was perfect. Now we just have to do it to what we think is the waking time.
Mm.
Okay, so let's see. Who's next? Connie, I think.
Is it me?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Number
Oh.
7.
I have already briefly spoken about readiness, but some additional points might be helpful here. Readiness is only the prerequisite for accomplishment. The two should not be confused. As soon as a state of readiness occurs, there is usually some degree of desire to accomplish, but it is by no means necessarily undivided.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The state does not imply more than a potential for a change of mind. Confidence cannot develop fully until mastery has been accomplished. We have already attempted to correct the fundamental error that fear can be mastered and have emphasized that the only real mastery is through love. Readiness is only the beginning of confidence. You may think this implies that an enormous amount of time is necessary between readiness and mastery, but let me remind you that time and space are under my control.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what it's saying here is that the mind has to be ready to be open to unlearning. What?
Like like willingness.
Yes, the little willingness. Yes. So that's the readiness, because until the mind, you can't force anyone to take a spiritual course, to do the spiritual work, right? They have to be ready. You can't, there's just no way to force them. So once they're ready, then they've maybe had that little thing of their questioning, oh my God, there has to be another way. Do you see what I'm saying? That we get to the point where we're finally just, even if it's just for a little instant, we're just finally fed up with the world, and we see that it's not working. And we see that this couldn't be true. How could this be? There has to be another way. So that's the readiness. And of course, that readiness is only the prerequisite for accomplishment. So we should not confuse both of them. And so as soon as the state of readiness occurs, there's usually some degree of desire to accomplish, but it is by no means necessarily undivided. And that's why, we start with A Course in Miracles, but we are still very divided. So we just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. Because that readiness is it only implies a potential for a change of mind. So now we are open to a change of mind. We're not protecting the ego thought system, at least not consciously, because we're saying, I do want to see the truth. I do want to change my thinking. I don't want to be stuck in the ego thought system. I have some motivation for changing my mind. But that doesn't mean that all the old patterns are, not going to show up. They're still going to show up. But at least there's that little willingness, because without that, the mind is completely close to the Holy Spirit, to correction. And the confidence cannot develop fully until mastery has been accomplished. So we shouldn't expect to feel confident until we've had a number of experiences, until we've experienced miracles in our life. Okay, the more miracles we experience, the more we are confident that we're on the right track and that forgiveness is the way. So it sort of reinforces itself. And that's why it's a training. It's a mind training. It's an undoing of an old way we trained ourselves and a new way to train the mind. Okay, so, and sometimes it does feel overwhelming, like, oh my God, there's so much there that needs correcting. But it's reminding us here that that time and space are under my control. So the Holy Spirit, once we give welcome, can be saving us thousands of years with miracles. So even though there seems to be this whole lifetime after lifetime of accumulated error upon error upon error, right? Just repeating the same error in different ways. It doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to take that many more lifetimes to undo it. It can happen in one lifetime. And it has happened. So, yeah. Okay. So any questions there?
No, but it just reminds me back in paragraph 5 that in sentence 7 and 8, concentrating on error is only a further error.
Mm-hmm.
And that the initial corrective procedure is to recognize temporarily that there is a problem. And
Yes.
to just get that immediately. That's that little gap that is sometimes just so hard to catch.
Yes, Connie. Yeah. And that's a really, really good point, because what I found really, really helpful was learning the EFT, the emotional freedom techniques, because that's and actually when I first learned it, it's the same thing with the Course in Miracles. You have the tool, but you forget to use it. So the first thing is even remembering that you have tools, that you have resources for dealing with these problems, because we're so used to feeling helpless and powerless when we are confronted with a problem, because we feel overwhelmed by it. And so the thing about the tapping is that you do it over once you remember, it's in your pocket, you just tap, it's in, then you take any problem and you already know you have a tool that you're going to look at the problem temporarily, because your intention is for healing, for correction. So from my point of view, that opens the mind to the right mind, to the Holy Spirit coming in, which ultimately is the source of healing. It's love. It's that, it's God's love. Yeah, but you're right. It's the, when we have a problem, the first, what we've trained ourselves to do is to judge and to blame. That's what we've trained ourselves to do.
Or freeze.
Yes, freeze, freeze. And freeze is going into fear.
Yeah.
Okay, and if we go into fear, there must be guilt under there.
Oh. Mm. Hmm. Excuse me.
Yeah. Because otherwise we wouldn't go into fear, right? Nothing's bad's going to happen. So fear says, this is bad. Fear says, yeah, someone's going to get punished here. Someone's going to get hurt here. Someone got hurt here. There's going to be repercussions. So fear implies error, and not just error, but it implies sin, because it means that someone is undeserving of love and someone is deserving of punishment.
Mm.
And who hasn't been raised with, I mean, parents that punished for error. I mean, it's rare, so we've all been conditioned to go into fear anytime we think we've done something wrong. And so the first instinct, it's an instinct now. It's not, oh yeah, let me look at the problem so we can solve it. It's like, oh shit, I gotta hide, I gotta run, I gotta, get ready to fight.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, but it's all, that's what I'm saying, is it's all conditioning from the past, and now all of that has to be undone, because it's based on the idea that God is a punishing, unloving God. And of course, we see our parents as gods, big giants, bodies, who could just, with one slap, knock us, unconscious. So of course it's terrifying. Yeah. But that's not God. That's a miscreation that we perpetuate. And that's why we're afraid. So anyway. Okay. Okay, so that's section 7, cause and effect. And there is one more section to chapter 2, which we will do next time. The meaning of the last judgment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so till next time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for your guidance.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Holy Spirit.